Okay, so for this episode, I'm going to be talking about our past. All right. Before we talk about the future, I think it's important for us all to get a common understanding about humans and our past and how the world makes sense. Okay. And I'm just going to focus mostly on how we developed and how we develop currently today, because I'm not going to get into religion or politics or any of that kind of stuff. It's more of the understanding of us in nature, and as far as timelines go with everything, and your belief structure, none of this should counteract anything that you currently believe or anything like that. It all should fall together perfectly, because if things happen a certain way, they have to happen a certain way. So what's important to understand is that us humans and all creatures and everything like that, right, we need certain things in order to survive. So we've all, living on this globe, this world that we live on, right, it follows under a certain parameter of living, right? So if you are standing somewhere and you can see the ocean, and you can also see, the mountains, you can look and you can see that life will stop at a certain level, and then if you go into the ocean, right, you go down a certain amount where you can see light, and that's where plants will stop growing and animals can venture off into those areas, right, or people and all that kind of stuff. But there's that level of plant life, right, where it will stop, and then if you look up, it will stop there as well. So that's important to realize, because that's really what we're working on as far as existence being, right? So hopefully that's just a basic step, right? So let's take some time, think about that. I'll say it again just so that we kind of stay on the same page, so you don't have to watch this over and over again, right? So plant life is what most creatures survive off of, right? So they either survive off of that, or they survive off of other creatures that are surviving off of plant life. And before that, there'd be there's also, currently still going on right now, there's still some smaller organisms that are surviving off of different chemicals that are eating things and eating chemicals and releasing other chemicals, right? So it's important to realize that all that stuff is currently and constantly going on in our world that we live in, right? So with that understanding, it's important to realize that the level that we look at, right, where the plant life stops now and it goes to on the top and the bottom, that's different, right? So it changes with the seasons as well, okay? So as, temperatures rise and fall within our existence in our globe that we currently live on, right, that area of plant life that people can survive off of, or creatures can survive off of, will shrink or grow. And you have to look across the entire globe, all of existence, to realize that changes. So over the last time that we saw a major increase in glaciers was roughly only about 11,000 years ago, okay? So you gotta think, glaciers, right, came down, and that level, when you look at that mountain, right, that went down, okay? So as ice is increasing across the whole globe, right, on the sphere, as ice is increasing, it's shrinking that amount of space that human existence can live on, or not only human existence, but most existence, right? And as that shrinks, right, it creates more it shrinks the amount that's in the oceans as well. So land will then expand out different areas. Okay? So what we see today is much different than what we've seen in the past. So we have to just understand that the existence of where people are living today hasn't always been the space that people have been living in, right? So that has now with it has been growing with human expansion and animals expansion, which makes sense, right? Because we'll expand in an area that we can expand in, and we'll shrink in an area that we can't. So with that, we have to think and consider a lot of different things. So we also have to look and see us as a human race, where we are currently, and realize that we are on our expansion right now, right? We're on our expansion from where we were to where we are now. So in order to really see the past in that, you have to realize that there was a lot less people, and they had a lot less area to expand in, right? Now I'm going to go into a little bit of the psychology of where we were, how we move, what we do, and all that kind of stuff. So it's important to think of what drives us as individuals, what drives our decision making today, and what makes us choose to go somewhere and us choose to stay somewhere. Because those same thought processes happen to people that lived a very long time ago, right? As far as how we think, it's very similar to how people thought a long time ago. The only difference is we have accumulated over the years a better way to express what our thoughts are. But as far as the general simple thinking of how things work, it's going to be very similar. So to break it down, right, of how we make decisions and where we choose to live and all that kind of stuff, is we're all going to choose to live in an area that we enjoy, that can provide us with food, shelter, water, your basic living needs, right? And then also, though, is a sense of safety and freedom. So some people require more freedom and more safety, and that really is what drives our decision making on our location, right? So let's break it down to an individual family, right? So in an individual family, you're going to have at least two people, right? You're going to have two beings that have created life, right? They have come together, mated, and they have created another being, right? So each one of those beings has a perspective. And those perspectives, as long as they stay similar and agree on the same thing, most commonly those people will stay together, right? Now, that's not always the case. So two people can come together and create another being, and those three could all have different opinions, right? Now, if those are the only three that are around, right, it's hard to make a decision that you're going to go off on your own and just go do whatever you want. And if any of those three choose to do that, right, let's say one goes off and chooses to go do something that they want to, it leaves just those two right there. That one that went off will live their life, right, which is roughly 120 some years at the max. They'll live their life, but unless there was something else out there that they could reproduce with, that will end, right? And those other two people, whether they were, the two original or the new one and one of the old ones, right? They could stay together, have the same belief, and if they wanted to, potentially, if they follow the right genetics, right? They could reproduce again. So that would create this area, right? And so pretty much what you have is you'll always have people who have the same beliefs and who agree that a certain way of life is the right way. That will be your anchor point in civilization, right? So that'll be your anchor point. Those people will stay. The ones that don't agree with the main population of that area, or the main people of that area, those are going to be your ones that leave. Now, the difference is of how many people leave at different times is going to give us a big understanding of, how you can see different cultures, how you can see war and all that kind of stuff. So let me explain that a little bit for us. All right. So we have one group of people here that have one belief, right? And then let's say they all decide, or let's say about, let's say 75% of them decide that they want to do something a certain way, all right? And then 25% of those people of the original group say, we don't want to do it this way. So that gives them an opportunity to discuss. And now they're discussing it. They decide, no, we're going to do it this way. And the other ones are saying, we're not going to do it that way. But they all live together, right? They all live in that same area. They all coexist together in that area. Well, what that can cause is different situations. Those people that disagree, the minority, they can choose to try and change the minds or change the group's ideas and thoughts and all that kind of stuff. But to have 25% of people change 75% of people, it's going to take a lot of time. And we are very confident in our own belief systems where we don't like to change. So oftentimes that's not the smartest solution. So what you'll see is those 25% over the 70%, they have other choices to make. So they could either say, hey, we're not going to change these people's minds, or at least, it's not going to, we're going to have to live under their rule because they have the more amount of people. We can either leave, take our 25%, leave, and go, to this other area, away from these people where we won't bother them, they won't bother us, and we can have our beliefs and they can have their beliefs, right? So when that happens, you're going to have people thinking, okay, do I want to stay? Do I want to go? Do I want to change my thoughts, stay with the 75%, or do I want to keep my thoughts and move with this other group, right? If they don't choose to move, the only other option they have is war, right? So war can then break that percentage and change that 25%. If that 25% is stronger, more powerful, maybe more fit for fighting, all that kind of stuff, that 25% can fight, and they can move and destroy that 75%. Maybe bring that 75% down to 50-50. Maybe that 25% can take out more than that, more than 25%, and maybe they can make the numbers of people originally in that area switch. So the ones that were the 75% are now massing at about like 30%, and the ones that were 25%, they're of that new population after the war, and they are at that higher percentage, right? So then they can stay there because they eliminated those people, all right? And they have the majority now. So, and they say, this is how we're going to do this, our way's right, we fought for it, and either you can, and then that population can say, okay, well, we give up, we'll do things your way, you destroyed enough of us where we don't want to lose any more people that have our beliefs. And then what will happen is they have some options, right? So they can imprison those people that had different beliefs, and that has happened, before. So you can imprison those people that have different beliefs because you want your belief structure that you're developing there to stay the same, or you can send them somewhere else, right? Or those people they can agree to change, right? So with all those, you have to think that that's how conflict resolution has been and usually works and all that kind of stuff. So we have to consider, realize, and understand that that's how things have worked, right? And the amount of population, right, that we see today was not, we're still in the expansion, right? So back thousands and thousands of years ago, you see the population shrink. So when we read in history and read in, things that have been written down and all that kind of stuff, it's important to look at like how many numbers of people lived in a certain area. Because if you hear something like in New York City, back this many years ago, or you hear something in, Greece this many years ago, when you hear those things, and, or in someplace in Africa this many years ago, a lot of times our mind puts in what we see it as now. And in reality, saying that there is a war somewhere, thousands of years ago, could mean a smaller number. It could mean 100 people had a disagreement, and you had a war of 25 people fighting against 75 people, and fighting, attacking, killing, and all that kind of stuff. So it's important that we look at numbers when we're understanding that kind of stuff. But let's keep in mind of what we're looking at with the past and how we're trying to understand this, right? So human existence and everything like that, we got to look at, it was a much smaller number, right? And now we understand that, why wars happen, why prisoners / slaves, why all that stuff happens, right? It's that different belief structure that we have. That's what causes people to decide to engage and forcefully change the minds of other people. And war isn't always the solution that people have, right? War only happens when people want to maintain the same area. That's what causes war, is when two people want to inhabit the same area, and that can be with resources and all that kind of stuff. That's what causes war. So if you look through all wars and stuff like that, you'll see that it's the people want to change the mindset of somebody in that area, or they want to gain that area, and that's what causes that we can't coexist. We can't both be here in the same spot, believing the same thing, because it's hurting each other's way of life. It doesn't. They both can't exist in the same space. So, with that understanding, the safer way to do it, right, is to leave. So what you'll notice will happen, and has happened all through history, is if the option of not going to war or the loss of war, you have that smaller population that will choose to go somewhere else, right? Now, let's say that population, that small group, was, like a family, a smaller family, or maybe, 2 or 3 families, right? And let's say they say, these people are thinking way different. It's wrong. It's going to cause damage. It's not the way that we think, and they all agree these 2-3 families is one family. They all agree that we're going to go somewhere else, right? So what they do is they go somewhere else. And maybe they it's not just, they can't just go, to a pasture next door or like over a mountain. Maybe they say this is still too close. It only took us a day to get here. It's going to take them a day with all their people to come here, and they could, at any time, they could hurt us and take our beliefs and destroy us and take our land and all that kind of stuff. So you'll have people that are capable of surviving and moving for multiple days, and what they'll do is they'll continue to move, continue to live their life though, day by day, until they get to a spot where they feel, all right, this is far enough away where those people won't come to us, at least anytime soon, and we'll be able to live the life that we want to here. It has the resources that we want here. We'll survive here, right? Now you have that group of people. They are mating with each other, all right? And that previous group of people, they're mating with each other, all right? So what you're going to see there and what you're going to have there is selective breeding, individual selective breeding of one individual choosing to mate with another individual, right? Whether that's forced or not, that's selective breeding. And over time, you're going to see that those people have similar traits, and the people over here have different traits of the mixed grouping of this area and the mixed grouping of this area. And that is what, over time, over thousands of years in time and stuff like that, creates the differences in our appearance, right? So it's because the reason why we have a difference in appearance and of how what we consider now different races, it's just selective breeding over time in a certain concentrated area creates those similarities, because you'll see it in animals, you'll see it in anything. That's how it works. That's how it happens. And the differences that we see, the major differences that we see in a few different races, shows you how long those races have been selective breeding of their own, belief structure and of their own like little family, pretty much, right? So that's where those differences combine. And oftentimes the reason why you don't see a crossover and why there was such a big difference for such amount of time is the beliefs were so different, right? The beliefs were so different. There's been wars between on those edges where they expanded and then they got close to each other, and there's been like little discretions and wars because they have different cultural beliefs. They have different rules that they follow. And when you don't follow those rules, and when you try and join someone else's way of life and it contradicts with someone else, that's where those battles happen, right? So because of that, that's why you see in areas where those few cultures try and combine, why there's more conflict, right? And then over time, as a population, because say the original population, they had some people split, and then you'll have this population, they had some people split. Well, of each of those, again, you can have that conflict of, hey, we believe this, hey, we believe this, hey, we believe this, we believe this. And you can have multiple wars of these little families, So then as those things happen, then you'll have them all seeing and believing different things. So you'll have people that are looking the same because they've had a similar belief for such a long time, and they've been mating with each other for such a long time, but now they're starting to have differences, and there's a little bit enough space for them to find their own way. So then you're going to have that kind of thing. Now, as far as like speech and all that kind of stuff, right? So there can be many reasons why that's going to change, right? You could have that group that left originally, and that group that left originally, they could decide that, hey, we have to speak differently than they did, right? We have to talk differently because we don't want any of them that come over to us, we don't want them to understand us, right? So we're gonna, talk in this different way. Another thing is some during that movement, some of those movements that people have, right, over time, is they could lose some of those leaders of that group. So you could have younger and younger people that finally get to where they're going. They know that, hey, the goal is to get, all the way over here, away from all these people. By the time they get there, though, they lost, the people of that group who've been around for a while and who has spoke a certain way. So that's when you're going to see like some words being similar and some words being different, because maybe those words weren't used until after they settled into that other area. And then they had to create their own communication of what something means. So that's how that word is going to be different, but how you can see similarities in those words. And you could even get to the point where some people, they're growing up creating completely their own language because they had no real, they didn't, until they settled down there, they really didn't have anyone teaching them, like, this is how previously we spoke. So no matter what, they'll still create their own language together. And that's why we have all these different languages all across, right? So as this happens, as this expands, right, it happens over a longer and longer period of time because of the amount of time that we can produce people and who we can produce with and all that stuff. If you look at what we have now and put those numbers in, you'll be able to see where we were and where we're going, all right? So I didn't really want to get into the future aspect of it too much today, but in this episode. But I guess what you can see is over time, what will happen is we will populate the entire area that are able. There will be no one will be able to run away and go to a different place, right, and start their belief there. So what's going to happen over time is people have to accept that this group believes this group believes that, and we're going to, be here and we're going to be here. And that's going to be fine as long as resources permit those to go, right? But eventually, unless both sides agree and work out a system that works, eventually there will lead to war if the resources that the one group needs in order to maintain their way of life are taken by the other groups. So it's something to consider, right? So culturally, if you have all these different groups believing different things, you're going to have conflicts once resources are used up. And that's when you're going to start to see things leading to a war. Now, what you'll also see is a blending, right? If people believe in similar things, but they've come from one area, maybe this group over here, and this group over here, right? They all start to kind of exist, and they're able to trade with one another, work out a system that works, right? Then you're going to start to see their cultures blending together. So that'll be speech, that'll be the way that they look, and it'll be the way that they share their culture, right? So ideally, that's the transition that works is we have something here that you see of value, you have something there that we see of value, and we're going to take that, and you're going to take this, and we're going to work together. Even though we have our core beliefs are a little bit different, this thing that you have that we need, and this thing that we have that you need are of somewhat equal value, and we can trade, right? That's how that you'll see those two being able to blend together and make a existence together that is not threatening, right? But if one has a certain way and they have nothing to offer the other one, then you're going to see resistance, right? And if that one belief system, if people are not willing to change that belief, then they will resort to most likely violence in order to do that. But ideally, what would happen as we grow is we grow in our understanding of all this stuff, right? So as we grow in our understanding of all this stuff, and humans continue to, expand across and populate as much of the world as we can, and eventually into the universe and all that kind of stuff. As long as we continue to understand that, like, this is what I have of value. Is there something that this person has of value to me? What can I offer them, and what can they offer me, in order for us to exist together in this area, right? Once you no longer have anything of value of that other group, that's when we're going to see those conflicts. But ideally, as far as like how we look now and our differences, that's going to disappear. How we look and our differences are going to disappear over time, because you're going to see different people blending with different people, right? And you're going to see culture blending and blending and blending and blending and blending. So that's kind of how you can tell of certain creatures and of where they are, right, in their existence, and who's survived, who's kind of won that grouping over. So as it spreads across the world and existence, we're only going to have a very similar look. All of us, 1,000 some years from now, all the people on Earth will somewhat look very similar, and all the people that are living in certain areas will look even more similar, because they're a smaller group that are blending each other's DNA. And this has happened from the beginning, and it will happen into the future, and it'll continue to all look a certain way as their DNA kind of gets more selectively chosen to be a certain way. So that is pretty much where I was going with that. As far as the climate goes, like I started with, kind of it's gonna change, right? And you're gonna see more land, you're gonna see less land, you're gonna see more ice, you're gonna see less ice, and how all that stuff is going to impact us is just like how it impacted people, you can't grow, not as much food or resources grow when more ice or more water, right? But luckily, as technology and other things increase, we're able to use some of that stuff, right? So as deserts start to expand and there's less plants there, but they need water, the people that live, or the beings that live closer to the ice, are maybe able to transport that water, or maybe there's something else that's different, and you take those values, and if the area is no one can live in that area and it has no value, people will leave, and if they choose to stay, that'll be the end of their existence. And that's how it goes, and that's how life goes on, and how it's all going to expand and how it's going to keep going. We're going to see we shouldn't be as concerned too much because of the amount of time that it takes for this change in our climate and change in land and all this kind of stuff, right? It will be individuals being affected more than it will be like grand people and all that kind of stuff, right? So it won't be like huge cultures being affected. So this worrisome that we all have to adapt and change a certain way. It's not a realistic, as far as the timeline goes. It's not realistic, right? The people that are losing homes, maybe an ocean home, right? Those people will be affected, and those people will move. The ones that want to stay will stay, and you'll see this. It happens as it's happening now. As I'm speaking, you're seeing this stuff happen, right? And as it gets harder to breathe and all this stuff, or it gets easier to breathe and all this stuff because of different chemicals in the air and all that kind of stuff, we have to understand that the changes we'll be able to adapt with, right? And if we all need to change to wearing a certain type of system in order to breathe in our atmosphere, then we'll do that and we'll adapt. And maybe that will help us change and grow and adapt to living, in a different atmosphere or a different area or a different planet and all that kind of stuff. So we'll continue, those people that notice those changes and choose to move from those areas that are being affected, right? Those people will do that. The ones that can, the ones that don't want to or can't, those ones will be negatively affected. And we just have to understand that these are more individual things, although it may seem like there's a lot of individuals in this area because we're getting more concentrated, right? And there's more people in certain areas. It's okay. It will expand, and we will, in the end, understand this, right? So it's not as big of a concern and a need to rush out and, do something, but you should always understand where we are, where things are going, how it'll change, and we just need to kind of have that understanding that it'll work out in its own way. Different generations in the future will have different experiences than our generation, just like our generation has different, current generation has different than those in the past. And it happens, right? You just have to, it's nothing to get worried about. It's nothing to, go to war about, really. Just find a place that you can live the life that you want, with the people that you want, and that you can continue that, process of, sharing your beliefs with like-minded people, and they can share their beliefs with like-minded people as well. But no, as long as, you continue to find areas of value and you work with other people and see what they have of value that you can gain from them, that's what's going to blend this all a lot easier than, having to get into sort of disagreements and cause war and all that stuff. Because the best solution, if possible, is to move to an area that is different, and that's really how humans have expanded and how you've seen certain people with certain beliefs succeed a lot more than certain people with other beliefs. It's just how things are, how things work, and how it's gonna continue to work, because it's the essence of what creatures are and what the creatures do and how they have been doing things, so how we will continue to do things, right? And it's gonna keep going that way. That's how things are, and they're just different. You just have to remember that that's how it works. So that pretty much sums up, I think, the past part and the future part into a quick kind of where we are as humans, where we're going to be as humans. As far as technology, I might do that in the next episode and really kind of get into the idea of, what's taking us from this planet and expanding us out to other planets and into existence a little bit more. Because the way that we should really look at it, I won't get into it too much on this one, but the way that we should really look at space is the way that we looked at the ocean, right? And you may say, well, we're land animals, we don't go into the ocean, right? You can't survive in the ocean. But then over time, you see people develop, fishing. They develop boats. They develop scuba gear. They develop, free diving to different depths, and all this equipment that helps us start to move into the ocean, start to live in the ocean. and being able to survive in that different environment. And then cross that environment to a different landmass where you can then go back to your land living and do all that kind of stuff. The same thing as space, and space is just like a big ocean, right? So there's different. You can't just go out there and survive by yourself, but with different equipment, right? You can have ships, and then different equipment. You can go out away from the ship by yourself, gather materials, come back, do all that kind of stuff, right? So, and then we're able to survive in a area, and then once we're able to survive in an area and gather, the nutrients and create the environment that we want in order to live, then we're able to expand out. But we can also, I guess I'm just gonna keep going with, I guess this would be a past and future episode. So then, as we continue to learn how to live out further in space, we'll do that. And as long as we create our, these self-sustaining, areas that we can live in space, we'll do that. And once that will continue to get better and better and better. But you'll also see, before we get to those spots, that will do what we've continued to do and what we've been doing for the past 100 years or so, is you're going to see us sending out things that are not life-threatening, right? So you're going to see us sending out rovers, and as technology increases, you're going to see more and more areas say we want to inhabit this area, but it's uninhabitable right now. However, we can send a robot there that can till the soil, that can do this, and then we can set supplies there that will do this and do all that stuff. And we can pretty much send out, and have robots working in these areas, and have, people that can survive in those areas, who've been trained to survive in those areas. They'll be the first ones to really make those leaps and jumps, and we'll see this, and we'll see it, and we'll see it, and we'll see it. And it'll be small, and people will continue to live their lives where they are. And, they may develop technology there that helps people out there, and we'll see the expansion, right? So it'll continue to go like that, just like it's continued to go with ships and stuff like that here on the planet that we're on. It's going to continue to go that throughout space. And over time, we'll continue to branch out, and you'll see more and more of that. So, nothing to worry about. Everything's going to be fine. We have a certain way that we've been doing things, and we'll continue to do things that way. It just, certain individuals choose a certain way, certain other individuals choose a certain way. Our differences are because we hold our beliefs so close, and that we need to see value in others in order to have that blending that happens. And as that happens, we continue to grow, change, and start to become more of, and I have a similar belief, but that's always the outlying, right? Those core that stay centered, those take years to change, because those are generations of people that are holding on to, or generations of beings holding on to that stuff. So they're going to hang on to it, and they're going to believe, they may believe what they believe until the day they die. You might not be able to change that, right? And those are the things that either lead to war or lead to people leaving. And that's just how life is. That's how we are. So we just all have to have that understanding of this is how things work. And it's nothing to, as long as you're able to leave those areas of people that have different belief systems, right, you'll be fine. To find groups that believe the same thing as you. Create that new group that believes that same thing. And if that new group's belief is wrong, right, you'll see it. You'll see those people starting to come back to that old way. I thought this, but it turns out this was wrong. And it's okay to have that transfer, right? We got to be upset accepting of like, all right, well, you'll see, kind of thing. Like, that's I'm not going to try and change that belief that you have, but you'll see that, you know, I've been there, done that, or I don't think that's right. But so if you find out that's not right, come on back, that kind of thing. You know, we're going to see that it happens all the time. It constantly is happening right now as we speak. So hopefully that has made everyone understand how we are as humans, how we exist as humans, where we came from as humans, and where we're going, right? And you know, geography and our tools that we use in life in order to survive, right? That's going to change, and all that kind of stuff. And it's important to realize, though, that we, as long as we think things and understand things and use these common understandings, that we're able to move past certain points and continue on and see that, you know, we're going somewhere. We've been somewhere, and, you know, people tried certain ways of living in certain areas, and it worked out, did not work out, and we're going to continue to do it this way. And if it's the right way, if it works, you know, it'll continue to grow. And, you know, if people have better options and they're able to go out and use resources and follow what they believe is right, and they are right, we'll see that, and we'll see, you know, how they do those things, and it'll happen like that. As long as we're able to expand or go places and believe what we want, there will not be war. And resources to share and all that kind of stuff. Once we stop allowing people, you know, to go places, to live the way that they want to, and they don't have any resources to go live their way, or we take away their resources so they can't do their things, right? That's what leads to war. So we just have to realize, you know, if your way's right and you can continue to use your resources and they're not going to end up, then you're going to be fine, and there's no reason to go to war. And it's not saying that, you know, that's a valid reason to go for it. You need to understand that's why people do things, right? That's why they do. They feel that they have no other option, right? Because they don't want to change their beliefs. They don't want to do, you know, they want to say, oh, we're right, and we'll fight to prove that we're right, because you know, we've been doing it for this long, and we're not going to change our ways. Like, that's the nature of humans, is, you know, they don't like to change beliefs. We like to hold our own beliefs true, and there's nothing wrong with that. We just have to acknowledge that if we don't allow other people to hold their beliefs true and don't understand, maybe, hey, I thought this one thing, but now look at, we don't have that resource anymore, and now we let everyone kind of astray by all having the same belief. Well, now we'll just we'll have to suffer from that, or we'll have to change our beliefs to their beliefs. And really, that's what it comes down to, is accepting, hey, we thought this, but it's clearly wrong. And that's the hardest thing to happen, and usually that's why it comes to war, is people aren't willing to acknowledge that what they believed was not the best thing, and it caused hardship on themselves and their loss of resource and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we have to understand and see, because that's what causes that, and that's what we don't really want to get to, those points, right? We want to say, okay, well, if we continue thinking this way and doing things this way, we're going to end up with nothing, or death and all that kind of stuff. So future, though, is going to be great as long as we continue to understand each other and grow and develop. So keep thinking. The way that you can help others is find something of value that you can have, share it with other people. That's going to, when you get in those close conflicts, or just leave, go somewhere else, find some people that have like minds than you. Do your thing there. All right. So this episode was a little bit different, right? Its tone was more of an understanding of past and future, right? And just a good understanding of how things are and how things should be. So next episode, not sure when I'll come out with that or what it's going to be about, but I'm also thinking about turning these episodes into videos and having someone, draw them up or animate them or something like that. So we'll see how this goes in the future, but thanks for listening on this episode, and I'll talk to you later.